the Niema Winyami in order to execute that task. Maybe dear maybe the really and near maybe a what potential to distract us from this major goal. Now I was saying really so her test now. I bring to me and kind test because me fat test no number be the issues are me person me for to me but there is one thing I'm a person for free test him. Onyame de Ben Hadad and Ben Hadad Eshe Ehabunsa. Now Onyame per se akonya wodi amano no or focus on maximizing the victory over Ben Hadad and his troops. But okay, sa passage na 1 Kings 20 na or say Ebra Ahab nya privilege ni opportunity no he missed the privilege. Ben Hadad eye who be BB ekopa choma Ahab eja no made kosa. Until the end of the story, the chair said, Onyame ma odifo bia or ma will be a ball prayer called Ahab and our kind of story which said Ahab. Now part of it he said, while your servant was busy here and there, he was gone. Now a person can say, while your servant was busy here and there, no, he was pointing back to Ahab and said, Onyame de Ben Hadad eshe Ahab nsa. Ahab was busy here and there, and the major mission of the man, no, when to me are executed, and you know, Ben Hadad and Hotetier. Now, when Yamikache Ahab said, your life will go for the life of Ben Hadad. Why you busy here and there? Woman, the Yampesamikani said, God has given us a specific mission. There are many things that they are important, but they are not GNT when Yami raises this church. If we get busy here and there, we will forget about the main mission. It is very important. While your servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And you know, okay, Oxford Dictionary, or see distraction here, a thing that prevents someone from giving full attention to something else. And she said, when I'm your friend for purpose, no, it deserves full attention. I want to start from annual council last year. Now, references because to me, code details in all these things. And I want you to go and do your own research further to confirm in some American. Within the church, you know, and it comes like I said, there is more fear within the church than without. God's problem has never been the hidden. Where is God for years, you know? Unyami Hawa no what any ambon for any amorite for Unyami Hawa or what had always been Israel for. Any the potential say Israel from Bango coin and money from Yami home. And you know, we are going to look at issues that threatening the mission and when Yami Jamayen from within. Now, the person who pay attention said, I am not the only one making these observations. Last year, annual council, October 10 to 13, 2021, the president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the vice president, they were also talking to the members are you know them annual council, division presidents, union president, they were also addressing some of these things. And you know, said even at the level of GC, they are trying to address these things. But maybe focus near Kwanya a year relevant to Yenya Ghana for. Remember, say we are in a unique position. Yenya 7-day Adventists in North America. There is and yes, and a Ghanaian Adventist almost Ghana. Our cultural, sociological, political environment and climate is different from the ones we find in Ghana. And I am going to address in Suya and the Kwanya a person a shape Adventism. Now, Yenya part and parcel of it. No, you will be a bayer. We are part of North American division. If maybe a airborne in maybe a air cobiano, we won't be, we can't avoid it. Now, the kind of Adventist identity. A friend and media frame of a unique from all other Christian denominations. But there are forces in our church. We want to reinvent ourselves. We do not want our identity. Just like Israel of old, we want to be like the other churches. And you know, in the annual council last year, of course, no, the president was talking about reimaging of Adventism. Say you person you try your room for nephrophobia. Now the core of this, they said, you are seeing now. And now, can this is not my words? This is Ted Wilson, also for Ted Wilson. Or say, and you my person you reimaging your one you are We want to be like the other churches, the Baptists, the Pentecostals, and the other churches. Now say a shift in emphasis in worship from a biblically based word-centered service that is life transformational to a more emotional form of worship that focuses on meeting a seeker's perceived needs through music and shorter storytelling, sermonizing, rather than biblical preaching. Or say, there is a current, okay? Something said in Sio Epo. It is one scene, but you've read ocean currents. Ocean currents, she said, rivers in the sea. It be about different directions. It was attempts within Adventism in our North American context to reinvent worship. Adventism is word-centered, the Bible and the Bible only. The Spirit of God combines with the Word of God to shape us for our mission and to prepare us for the soon coming. But I see there are trends. We want to move away from that. Now, emotional entertainment. The question is, are we also threatened by these things? Say, Ghana for. Is there pressure on us to be like the church down the road? Oh, yeah, 7-day Adventist church in Chicago, yeah, Ghanaians. But when you go down the road, there is so and so 7-day Adventist church. This is the way they do it. And said, is that what we are? Is that what is going on? I'm not using any church, but I'm using these things as examples. But I want us to know, say, there are movements also to shift away from the center. Now, the re-imaging of Adventism, it be a dumbing down of lifestyle standard. Oh, one on suffer in your Sabbath, the crown, would you in your way? Said then run out of Penia Piakubika, Sabbath, a year, any Yama who don't the Hina Aircoso, and your erosion of understanding of Adventist identity. You per se, the way I see 2 years ago, we want to be like the world. One classic example in the music. SDF is centered around the mission. Music SDF a music that expresses the theology and the theological understanding of the church. And the investigative judgment that you get any other songs are your children. The songs were meant to express our theology, and the songs were vehicles of evangelism. And then we want to sing generic songs. We are going down the road that the method is why you're okay with it, the way you're okay with it. We don't want to go the road that expressing the uniqueness of who we are. But we want the road that very acceptable. Is that the case within us? I don't have time to talk about music. But I mean, your music and the air cost where you know, and to the beer and yet deem that doesn't say Adventism. And you lesson in our the uniqueness of who we are expressed in our music, it is almost dead and gone. Now, and they do fight this, but we are looking at the Ghanaian context. Now, it comes here, I say, there is a great power in music. Music is power for good, but it can be a power for evil also. In fact, Selected Messages, Volume 2, page 38, okay, Satan will make music ensnared by the way in which is conducted. God calls upon his people who have their life before them in the word and in the testimonies to read and consider to take it. They do the come and it may be now he was describing a scenario here. Or see, service a bad lamb of noise, a shock with the senses, not a perverted that which, when conducted aright, may be a blessing. Now, see, the powers of satanic agencies blend with the din and noise to have a carnival, and this is term the Holy Spirit's working. Now, for this a by Ellen White, to say the devil masquerading like an angel of light to pervert music. It can serve good. And it is something we need to be aware. Said we will not go down the road. I am just highlighting here and there because Ebreno will not give me time to go into more details. But we are Christ and his work in the heavenly sanctuary. He said, Ghana for Jesus said, yes, will do an yet. He will finish it in the sanctuary. It is the issue. The investigative judgment. There are some codices, they don't believe in it. Jesus redemption was accomplished on the cross. It yes, you can't do a case that by you didn't say, yes, we are saying so it is very important. It is the grounds of our salvation, but it is not the end. There is an investigative judgment and yet a team and also now can great controversy. Page 425. Or say, while the investigative judgment is going forward in heaven, while the sins of penitent believers are being removed from the sanctuary, there is to be a special work of purification and putting away of sin among God's people upon earth. And as we have been hearing in this committee, what makes now as the time very urgent is that investigative judgment we ought to cooperate with Christ. Not Yamano Quine, now we have a special work of purification that was not accomplished on the cross. That is what Christ is accomplishing now, using the benefits of redemption through the agency of the Spirit. And the inquiry is as important as it is today, as it was in Calvary 2,000 years ago, because something is going on now. We cannot afford to lose sight of it. We cannot be afford to be distracted from it. In line with this is the sealing message. I will not go there. In line with the mission. In line with this, is also eschatology. 7-day Adventist said the mechanism. And yet some people think they said when you talk about the remnant and the identity, a pride once now can a moral superiority. Oh, said, I don't know any sanity. It is who we are. It is our DNA. It is what we were meant to be. When you read Revelation chapter 10, Daniel said, a woman that or say, you must prophesy again. Tell it to the world. This church was raised to tell the world again, to prophesy again, and tell the world the 3 angels' message said, yes, you get ready. Avoid the coming judgment. And we are not like any other denomination. We have been given a task. By Rahusa said, your friends may be in our church. A person boy free eschatology no. And we can confirm and affirm we say we have not made a mistake. In fact, Testimonies to the Church, volume 8, 307. Or say we are to see in history the fulfillment of prophecy, to study the workings of providence in the great reformatory movement, and to understand the progress of events in the marshalling of the nations for the final conflict of the great controversy. I was saying now we need to let the world know. I said we are being drawn into false ecumenism and false unity, false alliance. Oh, yeah, Methodist was yeah, Baptist was we are not recognized that when Yamima any such church's name. In fact, when Yamima Womtina Revelation chapter 18, the warning to the churches, when Yamia said, we should call them to come out of where they are. And if God recognizes his people in all these denominations, but ours is a unique messenger. We cannot be on the same level with them. But, and then we never say, oh, sorry, you see, there are different currents also to obliterate the difference between Yeni Omo. Nani said, we are thirsting for acceptance. You better Pentecost for a omo dom. We want acceptance. Sorry, I can see cathedrals, bishops, I can see one more money president, Transiting Common Acoba, accept here. And gradually we are shifting from our uniqueness. But the danger is the more we mingle, the danger is the more we dialogue, the danger is the more we lose that, the more we become God. The more our mouth becomes shut, because it becomes very difficult to articulate the message that we are missing. I am not saying say but we shouldn't lose sight of a Duma for their souls. And it's very, very important. And there were communicators, the best is a question if you heard them, and many other things time will not permit me to go into it. In fact, a team comes here, the papacy said a year room. final end time Babylon, Rome, any the churches of the world, any religions now the carbon, and now or more ayen niema who do a deal comes here in Testimonies to the Church, volume 6, page 17, or say the mark of the beast is exactly what it has been proclaimed to be. Not all in regard to this matter is yet understood, nor will it be understood until the unrolling of the scroll. The pillars are on the media surfaces, it is true, it is correct. May I encourage you, say, if you have not read the book, Great Controversy, I will encourage you to read the book, especially the last chapters. That will be our kind of book, and to say events or describable yet 100 years ago, and or describable. It is very important. The papacy is just what prophecy declared that she should be. The apostasy of the later times. It is the idea said, oh, prophecy into them, and it is part of our DNA. We are to warn the world. Yet, you said, based upon the message, woman making decisions. That is not our way. Woman making decisions is said, go with the plans, end time Babylon, ours is to let the world know. This is something that we shouldn't shy away from, a part of us, and we shouldn't be distracted from. Some of the distractions are also in North American context. BBC said social justice movement. So we'll take the name justice now, because the Bible talks about justice, but the devil is in the details. When you look at some of these social justice, rooted in Marxist ideology, rooted in Nema, contrary to the word of God. Karl Marx was sharing a system of thinking as or see, we don't need anything divine. The first thing is I am building a society based upon human achievement. Any now justice. Justice is good. By social justice, as the world proclaims today, it's not the messenger. A messenger higher than that. In fact, I'm not saying say yenye papa, and I say yema costume by yenye, but the person can say the way they define justice, because to a social justice warrior, justice is when somebody has the right to marry your person or Libya. For a social justice, the way define it, they sound good, but any different. We should be careful that we are not swayed into this. In fact, Bible grammar punch that now yes, the higher rule. Or see, government it was corrupt and oppressive. Yet the Savior attempted no civil reform. He attacked no national abuses, nor condemned the national enemies. Does it mean say yes, not or you're indifferent? No, Desire of Ages, page 509. Or say not because he was indifferent to the woes of men, but because the remedy did not lie in merely human and external measures. The message, in this message, justification by faith, the work of the Spirit on the heart of the person, more than social reform. Yes, who kindly said, to be efficient, the cure must reach men individually and must regenerate the heart. The message on Yamejama Asafrono, the Ebama Abeka Akumano, Ama Akumbano, Ama Hokama Yamu, what to me Asisa Akumano, Ma Obia Waye gay, and who said, Yami bet Mabami a new heart. Obia Waye, or yet drag out the bitch man who said, God can give me a new heart. That is the messenger. It is very important that we don't lose sight of these things. Oh, another thing, LGBTQIA. North America had this is the contest that you team. Church in Ankasa, said there were two levels in NAGSDA. You can't positions. By your kind of positions, there are different streams at any name, and we should be wise. I will say you need a honor. Said you be quiet, the first one. You bet no North America has a said you be young quiet BB because we said Obi a now recent name my friend said gay pride month. Now it's very interesting because of BB Americans is here. Now gay pride month, no name magazine be online, Friends and People magazine. I see everything you need to know about the Pride Month. Now, our sa pride na esha asiye no de ntia omoye pride no na or describe sa gay pride month no na asema na or can say pride month is an entire month dedicated to the uplifting of LGBTQ voices, celebration of LGBTQ culture, and the support of LGBTQ rights. At the pride month no de ntia pese ye ne san say one more identify one san nyina no ye pese ye ma one ne so ye pese ye celebrate sa culture no na ye support to omo right edina this is the way omo describe sa pride month in the manner cause no. Now there was something curious. If this is the case, how is it to say yenya ye institution ye Loma Linda yenya ye institution na yenya ye president or ye the president of Loma Linda Health ye pride month and ye man we as the phone ka say ya dia the map omo voices so ye the celebrity culture no na ye the support of LGBT whatever rights no na ye nia you you hear the president of Yenya July 12 2028 talking in a way to affirm omo rights no any omo ye giving voice to that now all encourages celebration that within that for Loma Linda now so when I turn now go read here Loma Linda Health University July 12 2022 year now your president your friend Richard H. Hart asema now these things are very important. We cannot ignore these things because the Rebecca said the tendency said the Rebecca said Loma Linda we need to understand the current trends in maybe any number SDA said as Ghanaians in North America, we will not be sucked into BBA, a better destruction from the purpose. Any danger when Yami, Eddie Yang, AC Hodom, ever North America has it. Now, one of the things I can't watch the person you reading was when Loma Linda University Health participates in months of recognition, we are working to heal and restore relationship, as I believe Christ calls us to do. Yes, Christ calls us to heal, but yes, one friend and said, Yembe celebrated Sadibadu. In fact, so called the previous Elina and was one, or see, in addition, someone is an opportunity for those who do not identify in this way to connect and support. But it is a yes to pray and say, you'll be able to buy my LGBTQIA, a missionary when you not to connect and to support. But mind you, this is the reverse of North America. We need to be careful. We need to be informed of the issues and to make clear the position when you na ye di esom na ye di etiti the mark ye di ebe yesu kwan every say current baby ekoso ewo oman ye tiwi mu na enu free mu a di okay evangelism in relation to the course is here now. Evangelism said never bring down the truth to a low level in order to obtain converts, but seek to bring the sinful and corrupted to the high standard of the law of God. We should not be distracted by any man else. We should not sink down. By young Momodin said, Yabema when Yasma a pigeon pano and ube pigeon pabia or the tibia or we need to be aware. The danger is not everything bearing the label of SDA North America and now you need to swallow, sink, line, and hook. Especially now there is BB Honma. I need to talk about it because say you can't and Yama way trends and Yama air cost wire potential distractions. Now can we next say we are trying to avoid issues. Now the elephant in the room, ordination, women's ordination as elders, women's ordination as pastors. Minianom Ghana Fire of America, I say we cannot avoid this issue. We will either avoid it today and face it tomorrow. And the idea is unavoidable. And in the last 10 minutes of my presentation, I wanted to throw some highlights on women's ordination, any ordination of elders, any maybe Kakrebia, Ekoswo, North America, I say, said Ghana Fire, our churches are scattered in conferences. You won't end it, you have said, you be kwanya you be faswa you be china krom ha say na yetumi achina si ewiye bremu in the current trends are ekoso. And I will give a brief historical survey na mi wi a me yakwa akosi GCA ekoso 2020 decision here a course where you did bamboo. At least we need to understand and then my echo because who was sorry, enemy master may gonna follow, and then a ma a chinababa say, young fat in mine yet, and yet as on before. We cannot behave like ostrich, and we cannot avoid that. In the issue of ordination echo sundano, obi biara or can be biano, ejitu say, a man a place in ministry. Obi biara jitu say, a man in memenino, when Yamma will be our talent, he said. Yemfa enye ejuma emfa emwa the echo the heart of it baby a issue no wo eye say oba ebetumi aye elder and our pastor and now oba ebetumi aye sa leadership. That is what it is. Headship any sanema nyina. When you study the trajectory from the 1970s ebepim the just ended GCR I don't want to focus on other things. And once again obi bebu say when we talk about now is the time to avoid distractions, sir. Why do I need to talk about this, sir? It's important. Churches have divided because of this. Churches have split because of this. Ghana of why North America, no. Either we decide to be like ostrich and bury our head in the sand and pretend say by soon and very soon. We need to understand this is in 1974 Annual Council and GC, and after GC, and the Kuokitwebia, Womushia, Wamukwato Dream. At the Annual Council, they were looking at the possibility, said, Yebeye Oba elder, and now Yebema Kwanse Oba elder. Now, if we are Mushi, they be agreeing because almost to record our opinion that because the Seventh Adventist Church is a world church, which includes in its fellowship people of all nations and cultures, and because a survey of its world divisions reveals that the time is not ripe nor opportune. Therefore, in the interest of the world unity of the church, no move be made in the direction of ordaining women to the gospel ministry. Here and there, by what we will say, and yet ripe will say because the biblical basis and the spirit of prophecy basis are the here say yama oba any elder no anymore. By mind you say in the minds of young people issues, no. An elder and a pastor are the same thing. An elder and a pastor is the same thing. In this tragedy, I will show it, but I want to bring it up from say as I trace this to the end. Now, the highest office in the church is the elder. I don't know say I told them you won't say obedience of opinion, but you said Ted Wilson, your friend say Elder Wilson. And I say, be elder friendly, and not elder Cobanonco, a status of respect. When you need to be and to the idea of elder, anyway, the same thing. And you know, now you follow the trajectory, and you know, only requesting said, President's Executive Advisory to also arrange for further study of the election of women to local church offices which require ordination and committees. In any special cases, a definitive position has been adopted before. And you need any consensus on the Bible and a script of prophecy. And the division as elders. Fast forward to spring 1975, April 10th. In spring meeting, actions are taken as follow up to this. They said, one, that we agree that potential leadership roles on all levels of administration, not requiring ordination to the gospel ministry, be open to suitably qualified women whose home and family responsibilities make this issue. And the person who pay attention, because as it goes forward, the nuances will change. And the potential leadership roles are and require ordination, be open to qualified women. This was the case the year after 74, 1975. And as part of young church, any day. By the way, some points are the annual council, no points are making and it is the exact order, and I'm quoting from the exact order in the document. And the third decision, and the vote, I'm taking it said, young requested church and institutional administrators on all levels now continue making efforts to place qualified women as well as men in the categories of work refer to the previous one, I am qualified for ordination. Now, there was a theological inconsistency. But then, like I said, the office of a pastor and the elder in the same office. Now, okay, the theological inconsistency now, in the same paragraph, now that theological inconsistency in 1975, no, it will show up in 1990 GC session. But before I get to 1990, no, the person you have said, and almost I can say, in harmony with the spirit and intent of paragraph 3, and 1974, no, the greatest discretion and caution be exercised in the ordaining of women to the office of local elder. Counsel being sought in all cases by the local conference, the union, and the ceremony. And there was a big jump. The big jump when he said, I feel there. Yen to me, I say, you bet to me, I said, you bet to me, I oba elder. You bet to me, oba elder. Yen yet careful here. Say, oba elder, na yen no, young consult to conference, no, young consult to union, no, young consult to division, no. In fact, okay, the 6 points now. Okay. We recognize that the history of the Seventh-day Adventists can provide precedents for women to fill roles of leadership. However, on the matter of the ordination of women to the gospel ministry, we believe that the whole church is not yet ready to move forward. Said the said, almost realize this, and that was something that was reaffirmed. Now, fast forward to 1984. The first point I want to establish is that there was no biblical consensus. There was no spiritual consensus. It was kind of a political administrative decision devoid of a solid biblical foundation. And nobody make it, it fast forward to 1984 annual council. And the 1984 annual council, reaffirmed, as if we said it was something that was agreed that yes, solid. Reaffirmed the annual council's decision, in 1975, that women can be ordained as local elders in those divisions which make provision for it. It started from said, well, I saw be a person, unconsulted, and I say, any biblical for it anyway. I feel the division of person, and the whole idea now shifts from a biblical consideration to just administrative consideration. And this was 1984. Now 1984, and no more year, and you may be too honor. Say, I'm sorry, I will pass. It's saying you need clear consensus on this from the Bible. I'm sorry, I will pass it. Would you or banner or Daniel say elder? No, if a church person, yes, are there, and yet the entire discussion, and once again, the level of discussion, is at the local church. Such church, I was said. The entire matter must be approved by the conference committee after the conference administration any council from union. It is a local church, Columbus Church. The person you are by elder. It was said, maybe church not to come a conference, conference no, and to consult with the union, not yet approval. And that was the different levels, and all these things were important because you need clear biblical injunction for this. And it was set within some administrative framework. And Amoka said the action to elect and ordain a woman as a local church elder must not be taken unless a clear consensus exists that the ministry of a woman elder is desirable and even essential to the spiritual well-being of the local church family. It should also be the consensus of the church that a woman elder will be respected as a spiritual leader and soul winner. The church should also express its belief that there are dimensions of spiritual service and the counselor. And the person will make it was a breaking said. During these processes, yes, the other kind says, astronomy pobeya. I was astronomy careful. What did you say? Astronomy jatum said a bebuamo, na one casa more consensus. And in this level, you see, okay. Division anyway, you to me, because you need clear consensus. It's once again, I want us to bear that in mind. And a part of a clear majority of the voting members of the local church, still at the local church level, must be in the favor of that action. Over the last paragraph, although preliminary study could be given to this question by the local church board, any final action should be taken by the church in the business meeting. And up to this point, not the Abana said, the piano administrative level said, and the local church, but prior to this, a lot of study had been done. The show said, biblically, the position of the as well Prince Elder Bible say a bema and a yes no. And in these discussions, those theological things were avoided. Say no administratively. It's from local church no, na local church no, and yet now fast forward to 1989. Or 1989 is very critical. Now ordination and then last point and I will still bear 5 minutes being made the Arapuno up. 1989 annual council and so no almost commission here a year ordination of women to the gospel. Now commission the women commission. Now almost what now say no 1989 almost report almost for two twice. Attendees no yes I'll get to me 187 no 97 and after so general conference committee members 104 yes no 77. Now almost for two said this is very important to accept the following report and recommendations of the role of the Women Commission and to refer them to the 1990 General Conference session for approval. And Tijomuka said the presidents of the world divisions of the GC reported to the Commission on the situation in their fields with respect to the ordaining of women to the gospel ministry. In several divisions, there is little or no acceptance of women in the role of pastors, ordained or otherwise. In other divisions, some unions would accept women as pastors, but indications are that the majority of unions do not find this acceptable. However, in the North American division, there seems to be wider support for the ordination of women. 1989, Assembly came. Underline the North American division because this is where we are, and that is where I will end this whole point in making. At the General Conference, almost the president, the General Conference and division officers present at the commission, almost conclusions are almost making here, leading to 1990 GC Act, Indianapolis, also one. The commission, having listened to the arguments and presentations for and against the ordination of women, having sensed the needs and concerns of the world, having carefully considered what is probably best and the least disruptive for the world church at this time, and recognizing the importance of our eschatological mission, the witness and image of our spiritual family, and the need for oneness of family and unity in the church, reports to the 1989 Annual Council of the GC the following deliberation. One, while the commission does not have a consensus as to whether or not the scriptures and the writings of Ellen White explicitly advocate or deny the ordination of women to pastoral ministry, it concludes unanimously that these sources affirm a significant, wide-ranging and continuing ministry for women, which is being expressed and will be evidenced in varied and expanding gifts to the infilling of the Holy Spirit. And Tijomo can say, and just our band to me and the contention said, ordained, and said, there is no explicit biblical on this from the spirit of prophecy and also from the Bible for or against. Now, the second point, I will make it, a recommendation, I will make it to this. In review of the widespread lack of support for the ordination of women to the gospel ministry in the world church, and in view of the possible risk of disunity, dissension and diversion from the mission of the church, we are talking about destruction. The commission recommends to the 1989 Annual Council that we do not recommend authorization for women to be ordained to the gospel ministry. I will go to the elder pastor connection very soon. Now, in 1990, at the GC, at our General Conference session, of course, there was this discussion on the floor on this because this was a recommendation to the floor. And our president, our friend said, Neil Wilson, all refer to sad decisions you are taking in the past year to make a point. Now, this is very important. Or say, it was suggested that in North America, in a local church, with guidance of the conference, so that this kind of thing would neither divide and split the conference nor create essentially within a local church. 1975, 84, and 7 this is paging back to this. Women could be ordained as local elders. And right from moving said, young family local church, no one decided now because there is no consensus. Now it is crystallized and said, women can be ordained as elders at 1990. And there was a shift, a total shift, moving to a solidification of something. Clear now, local churches to prayerfully pray about it in light of constituency. And now say, now this is Neil Wilson talking, and we need to understand this in our Ghanaian context. Or say, the big difference between being ordained to a local church eldership and being ordained as a minister of the gospel is that the credentials of the ordained minister have validity anywhere in the world. And this is important. Changes are no GC session next manual. In 1990 GC session, Nelson Wilson on the 40th said the difference was a Yawodeni Obise elder. And Yawodeni Obise or your sophomore said, or sophomore the validity no anywhere in the world. Elder no ordained to function within your local church. But in terms of the office, anywhere the difference again. It is critical that we understand that distinction. And you know, what can say? Because the agitation say Obana, Yenya Obano, the Cadwosin, Papa, so was in all kinds of say. So the recommendation that you have before here was the recommendation of the commission to the 1899 annual council of the GC conference committee. And Obusa said, did we make a mistake in authorizing women to be ordained as local church elders? How can we correct it if it is a mistake? Did you all person can say yen to me a mass of what they are, and they can say a ma elders are a mistake. And the decisions they take is say, young Franco local church come, you know, Nayan Franco, Nebeja, say, and no any mistake here. We don't have any grounds, you better say yen to me or bar or so forth. Because Oba or so for any Oba a the same thing. It is a yen to me or bar or so forth. Yen to me any Oba elder, yen to me your bar so forth. Say you bet me Oba elder there. There is no point to say you bet me. And no, we say by allowing a master elders to did we make a mistake. And say after lengthy discussion, a lot of prayer, it was felt that it had been done with the best interest of the church, and that we felt the Holy Spirit had led it, and that there was a strong support for women to be ordained as local church elders. And I said, I realized, Brother Chairman, that this may seem somewhat inconsistent, very important. But I would like to point out that at least the commission has been consistent in its inconsistency. And to hold to say a bit my backo, to be near backo all along these years now, you can't say a bit more bad, I local elder, by yen gospel minister, no, sa period now, commission no, a level with sa decision in no, they were living consistently with inconsistencies. Because you can't go either way without the other way. You know, go together. And you know, this is what the GC President Ekaye recognized ordination to an elder and ordination to the gospel ministry. The only difference is the sphere of service in terms of the same thing. Now, so fast to forward that in 1990, GC Nimu ene uba wenima vote taking in nano said there be Chiabasano said the world church will know God that right now. 2012, and now your unions be a omu unions no omu your imagine said they will go ahead and define where the world church stands on this and still ordain a man. Now Abraham Sano fast forward to 2018 November NAG omu end of year meeting. Now there is an aggressive move. And North America has here one say a reaction of Nupo Yempo, Yabeya a mass of war. And that is the mood I want. Now, a very interesting say, Brown, we share our NAD year meeting 2018. Yen President Anna Satam Ed Jackson on Meki, a very important statement. Now, the Pesayiti, we are conclude this session of NABDC as a potential distraction. Where after said, GC, said there be the unions na yeno, and ya dia also moye, and you say ya commission, nanky disciplines are division, unions are, or taking actions are any Sanimano Encono, and this is the president no Ekaye.
We will not stop. Furthermore, we will continue to agitate for the ordination of women to the gospel ministry.
Bachomuti audio no. My main sample audio no ba very important. This is my last year because we audio no ba.
We will not stop. Furthermore, we will continue to agitate for the ordination of women to the gospel ministry.
This is NAD president after World Church now taking decisions. And now, because NAD had here, they will not stop. Now, the interest you want to say, Or say yen stop say ye be agitated. Now agitate me go read dictionary or say to make troubled or nervous and to troubled and nervous and campaign to arouse public concern about an issue in the hope of prompting action to stir or disturb. It's why I say NAD had they will not stop. Say we are Fubeka say ye be odeni oba ye be say and elders whatever it is they will not stop the campaign go forward. Why is this important? Why did I want to spend time to talk about this? Our Ghana for CAMPMEETING, when we are talking about matters a distract here, the issue of women's ordination, any to elders, any pastors, said the Messiah say Tracy, it will continue to be agitated. We as Ghanaians better make a decision on this. Now, where we stand on this in light of the a free bar. Any the trajectory, the person you pushy and near muscle in a different direction. Said these things will not hunt us. After so many years, as of national say, that the so we say the key issue said, who is a spiritual leader? You can say elder. Any pastor now on the same power. No, the church has stood in the same position. But me person you say, sincere for the first time in the history of Yasorino. Sadiano yedi beshe manuamu. Nanya said this is the first time yedi beshe manuamu. In all the years I can was a binano. Oh, look at church in red. Yenye we say no. Although ye knew the be a yakase, a feed ye see Bible no who said ye convicted said you know baby yes sir. But for the first time no baby I do say at GC session I been see that ya to say information manuamu. It has been ratified at the GC session. Previously, no annual council. Now, so we share GC session course here. Eti how is it called? Adiana that previous one now. Because once ordained elders need not be ordained again if re-elected or upon election as elders of other churches, provided that they have maintained regular membership status. They are also qualified to serve as deacons. Yayan diaconate. Now the entire church has deacons member. Oyan deaconate na both ways, gender not could go both ways. Now this is important because the new one changes now. Almost say I follow the American, almost say elders subsequently elected as deaconesses. Elders subsequently elected as deaconesses should not be ordained as deaconesses because ordination as elder covers this office. This is confusing. But the person says who they will be say elder. And that's the who re-elected that. And you can say how they need him. Take your elder baby come. Now, quite the next and was actually him say, and the elder who elected and said deaconess, no, and you can say, who sounds ordained implying said, elder, you can want some no, say you ordained no, it can be Oba and it can be Obama. And you know, now, no, for the first time, no, at a duly convened GC meeting, no, this is coming to our church manual, ratified said, the office of elder, no, is affirmed, so Babich by in the minds of the tragic Jama follow now, says, henceforth, no, I know, said, Ebeba said, we can't hold to this position and deny, say, which by a mass of war. By the question, we can't maybe say and said, Ghana, Asorimo, Ebeba. Remember, it has been a political decision. Young farmer, sorry, no, young farmer will say, is here to be young can say, you have better biblical reasons, but ye question man, Ebeba in our local churches. But, you know, and you're interested that when they did this, there was something in the manual, the drafters of the manual, they struck it out. I'm just McCarthy from GC session agenda. Now we will know. Okay, the previous now a woman said, men appointed of God have been chosen to watch with jealous care, with vigilant perseverance, that the church may not be overthrown by the evil device of Satan, but that she shall stand in the world to promote the glory of God among men. Now, no. The work of say as of Juma, or yet direct reference to men in relation to these discussions. The new manual here about the film to be consistent with the direction. Now, while your servant was busy here and there, he was gone. We cannot afford to avoid these distractions. Mumayen Kai say we are living in stormy times. The decisions in unions, divisions, we will face it because we live in North America. But I want to leave you now with this conclusion. Okay, great controversy here. ewie ye bremu ebre wiase bedu sumo na enema bebre pese ebe wura onyame asafo a hijack onyame asafo a dream comes say but God will have a people upon the earth to maintain the Bible and the Bible only as the standard of all doctrines and the basis of all reforms. The opinions of learned men, the deductions of science, the creeds or decisions of ecclesiastical councils, as numerous and discordant as are the churches which they represent, the voice of the majority, not one nor all of these should be regarded as evidence for or against any point of religious faith. Before accepting any doctrine or precept, we should demand a plain "Thus saith the Lord" in its support. Japanian Kophobia, officer who they will push different agendas. To say the NAD president, former president, and just say, but it is upon us as Ganafwa, to know the currents and to make the best decision, not because division be say, not because GCB not because, but will be a piano. Before we do that, before we practice that in our local churches, within our Ghanaian circle, you're making sure say, it is consistent with when you counselor or Jama ye Bible. And you want to do so with the say my family brother so we say in Bano Diana, I need time to do a little justice. And here I will pause here. Now some few minutes and one of your questions are about Yamishraye.
For the CP former Hopana me and Namusudi in some way am I. Dear, meeting some Siana, who dreaming of me. Po eba nti Genesis ye. So be a pine